Philosophical Mysticism, Lesson 72, How to Break Reality. So are we living in a simulation? Some philosophers like Nick Bostrom say it's very likely we are living in a computer simulation. And he gives arguments like, most species would create simulations, and due to the ease at which virtual people can be created, there's going to be way more virtual people than non-virtual people by huge measures. So if you just do the math, if you are alive now, you're very likely living in a simulation. Other philosophers like David Chalmers say that, even if we're not in a simulation, we could never know for sure. Because everything we know is within the simulation. So even if something fanciful like the programmers came and talked to us or something like that, it could still just be part of the simulation. There's no way to know for sure that that's just not part of the simulation itself. So we can never know anything outside of the simulation. These are some issues or some problems this is some of the arguments made for the simulation hypothesis. But I'm going to sort of ignore this. I'm going to circumvent this and ask a more practical question. That is, whether we're actually in a simulation or not, or can know we're in a simulation, how do we get out? How do we free ourselves? How can we guarantee that we free ourselves from a simulation? There is a way to guarantee our escape, but it involves breaking reality. The causal paradox. In the previous lesson, I said that a valid claim with true premises and a false conclusion is a kind of mental virus that can break an idea of the mind. There's a similar type of virus in physics, a causal paradox. It sort of infects reality in a similar way to how the valid claim with true premises, the sort of logical paradox, affects the mind. So a causal paradox. A causal paradox is a series of causal events that directly contradict each other or are self-defeating. The easiest way to make sense of a causal paradox is through time travel. So, for instance, time traveler travels back in time and kills his grandfather. So, very famous paradox here. But by killing his grandfather, the time traveler is never born and thus cannot travel back in time to kill his grandfather, creating this sort of contradiction or making it self-defeating in some way. Some say a causal paradox, if generated, would destroy the universe. But it's not clear that it would, and I'm going to get into this. It might instead free us. Ad hoc anomalies are also commonly introduced, like adding new timelines or something like that, or adding a multiverse or something like new universes. So there are these anomalies that are sort of introduced to prevent causal paradoxes. But I don't think these fixes really have a solid foundation. So if the time traveler, sort of gets dressed, enters this time machine, gets in this time machine, travels back in time, and actually just kills his grandfather, there's nothing really to prevent him from doing so. What would stop him? The only way to actually stop this would be to introduce some type of new causation that is very different or inconsistent with everything we know so far about the universe. And I don't think that's a plausible thing. New timelines, new universes. I think that's just speculative. It's not really in line with what we know about the universe so far. How to break reality. The key to escaping the simulation, if we're in one, is the causal paradox. That is, if a species is caught in a simulation, it seems a rather easy way to escape the simulation would be to intentionally generate a causal paradox. And this seems rather straightforward with time travel. You just go back in time, kill your grandfather. You'll generate a causal paradox. a time paradox. If we are in a simulation, if we're in a computer simulation, a causal paradox would likely, almost certainly, crash the program or cause us to end or reset. Sort of like dividing by zero, almost doing the impossible. So if we are in a simulation, a causal paradox, it seems very likely that it would crash the program. And this is the case because all computer programs and coincidentally mental programs are based on logic. So if we are in a simulation, which is likely that we are, our reality is the simulation or program. So by crashing or breaking reality, we're destroying the simulation, not really destroying the universe. So the fear of destroying the actual universe is unfounded because we are likely in a simulation and we would just, for the most part, destroy the simulation. We wouldn't destroy the actual universe if there is one. So that's how you break reality. That's how you break the simulation. You just generate a causal paradox. The biggest choice of all time. So I'm arguing breaking reality would be a good thing because it allows us to free ourselves from the simulation. The simulation is a false reality. Unless we're not in a simulation. Then, if we're not in a simulation, and what the physicists say is true, we risk destroying the actual universe if we're wrong, which would be a bad thing. Not just for us, but for all the other species that might be as well. So here we face a choice. The biggest choice we'll ever have to make as a species. Intentionally generate a causal paradox that guarantee we escape the simulation, or B, willingly stay in a simulation or never know for sure in order to not risk destroying the actual universe if we're wrong. So we have A and B. These are our choices. Well, choosing B is noble. It's a noble thing to do. But it's ontologically bad for whatever species that makes that choice. Because it seems unreasonable to expect a species spend its entire existence, its entire span as a species, in a fake reality. Especially based on an assumption that may not be true. And also based on the fact that time travel seems pretty straightforward. That's a causal paradox we could do. And it seems very likely time travel is possible. At least current physics thinks so. So they have they can easily get out if they want to. So if they intentionally stay, they're doing something noble, but it is bad for them because they're stuck in a fake reality. So this is my view. I take it we or any other species should take the risk. We should take the risk, intentionally generate a causal paradox, choose A. And the reason this is the case is because if it was the wrong choice, some species would have already destroyed the universe by this point. So if A was the wrong choice, then the universe probably would have been destroyed. We wouldn't be asking this question. If you want to learn more, check out the book Philosophical Mysticism, A Spiritual Handbook for Mankind by Nicholas Schroeder. Definitely worth your read.